The United States has tightened sanctions against Burma's military regime as it faces growing international pressure to halt its violent crackdown. But while brute force may be working inside Burma's borders, there's little sign of a lessening of the protests by pro-democracy sympathisers around the world.
The more Burma's military crushes dissent with brute force, the more international outrage grows. Protests against the violent crackdown continue around the world. In London, Rome, Washington, Bangkok and Seoul, a global show of solidarity with Burmese pro-democracy protesters. A Burmese monk led this protest outside UN headquarters in New York. In Tokyo, demonstrators mourned the victims of the crackdown, including a Japanese photographer, Kenji Nagai, who was among those killed in Rangoon when troops opened fire on protesting crowds. Burmese state TV claimed his death was accidental.
He was accidentally killed while taking news, following along with the mob.
But these pictures show Nagai being shot apparently at point-blank range. Japan's government, one of Burma's biggest aid donors, has dispatched a senior official to Rangoon to seek an explanation. We're carefully weighing up our response, said Japan's new Prime Minister, Yasuo Fukuda. But sanctions are not the best step to take now. The US, however, is tightening sanctions on Burma's junta, slapping travel bans on senior military officials, on top of freezing their American-held assets. Washington also wants the UN Security Council to apply more pressure beyond sending a special envoy to Rangoon.
There needs to be immediately a stop to the violence against innocent people, and even though, as I said, we would have liked to have seen a stronger action by the Security Council, we do think that sending Mr. Gambari out is a very good step at this point.
Burma's Asian neighbours, who've been unusually critical of the regime's actions, are hoping the UN envoy's visit will force the generals to show restraint and open up a dialogue with democracy activists.
It's critical. We have to support him. If he fails, then the situation can become quite dreadful.
Many might argue it's already dreadful. Britain, like Australia, fears the death toll is far worse than reported and is urging the European Union to also impose sanctions.
That this will begin to make the Burmese regime see that this cannot continue. The eyes of the world are not only upon them, but the anger of the world is now being expressed.
China continues to face calls to use its influence and do more to pressure the Burmese regime to halt the bloody crackdown. Vesna Nazor, World News Australia.